I'm looking at the fan reaction, and a lot of fans appear to be out for today's game. A lot of fans are putting in their own personal injury report. Out. Open parentheses, no Caitlin Clark.
Stop for a moment and think about what you just heard. An entire nationally televised game, and fans are essentially submitting their own injury report. The diagnosis? No Caitlin Clark, so we're not showing up. That alone tells you something unusual about where the league finds itself today. A thriving professional league shouldn't depend almost entirely on one 23-year-old guard to capture public interest. Yet many believe this one still does. And by the time we're finished, the numbers will paint that picture clearly. Let's begin with the one thing no one can disguise, the empty seats. Looking at the ticket marketplace, thousands of seats were still available. What's even more surprising is how inexpensive many of those tickets had become. Lower-level seats near the court were selling for just $28, $50, and similar prices, yet they still weren't moving. Think about that. Less than $30 for a seat in the 100 level at a nationally televised game, and buyers still weren't lining up. Thousands of tickets remained unsold, including many of the best bargain seats in the arena. That's significant because ticket prices reveal real consumer demand. When courtside adjacent seats fall to the price of a night at the movies and still struggle to sell, the market is sending a message. Many fans argue they weren't purchasing tickets simply to watch the Indiana Fever. They were buying the opportunity to watch Caitlin Clark. Once she's removed from a lineup, the marketplace quickly reveals how much demand exists for everything else. On this particular night, critics argue that value appeared lower than the cost of an average dinner. And that frustration didn't develop overnight. For many supporters, it traces back to a coaching decision that continues to spark debate among the fan base.
Thousands of tickets still available. But even worse than that, the tickets that are available, dirt cheap. You can sit in the 100 sections for $28, for $50, and even those tickets aren't.
This is the part that really hits home for Fever fans, and it's easy to understand why so many are frustrated. Their argument is straightforward. The organization stayed quiet for too long. It wasn't until Caitlin Clark was already sidelined that the team finally began speaking out about the physical play and the officiating she'd endured throughout the season. To many supporters, that's exactly the wrong sequence. You protect your franchise player before she ends up on the injury report, not after the damage has already been done. Now, to be fair, every coach will tell you they don't control the officiating, and injuries are simply part of professional sports. That's absolutely true, and it deserves to be acknowledged. But perception often matters just as much as reality. Right now, many fans believe the people responsible for protecting the league's biggest star didn't speak up until it was too late. When your most valuable player, the one driving ticket sales, television ratings, and sponsorship interest, gets hurt, a response that feels reactive instead of proactive is naturally going to draw criticism. Fans notice those moments, and many respond by tuning out. That brings us to the television networks, which invested heavily in making this season a centerpiece of their programming.
How this team, how this organization, how this coach doesn't protect their star player, it ain't good. Stephanie White waits for Caitlin Clark to get injured to finally stick up to the refs, to finally call out the officiating.
Here's a decision that looks completely different today than it did just a few months ago. ESPN made the bold move of replacing Sunday Night Baseball, one of its longest-running summer staples, with Sunday night WNBA broadcasts. That wasn't a minor scheduling adjustment. It was a major investment. The network looked at the momentum created by Caitlin Clark and essentially said, "This is where the future is headed. We're going to build a prime-time showcase around it." But tonight, that showcase is missing both Caitlin Clark and Aya Wilson. Put yourself in the position of a programming executive. You set aside a proven television property that had delivered reliable audiences for years, only to arrive at one of your biggest Sunday broadcasts without the league's two biggest attractions on the floor. That's the challenge of building a primetime package around star-driven appeal rather than the overall product. When those stars suit up, the strategy looks brilliant and the ratings usually follow. But when they're unavailable, you're left with a matchup that doesn't generate the same level of anticipation. And the television numbers begin reflecting that reality.
Hey, you don't want me here? Okay, I won't be here. Let's take a look, shall we? Status report for tonight's game now, at Las Vegas. They're in Las Vegas, ESPN, prime time, part of this new Sunday night package that ESPN has put together. ESPN got rid of Sunday night baseball for Sunday night WNBA. No Caitlin Clark versus no A.
Now we arrive at the number that really deserves your attention, because this is where the conversation becomes impossible to ignore. Reports indicate that the most recent game Caitlin Clark missed drew roughly 1.5 million viewers. On the surface, that's still a respectable television audience. But the comparison is what really matters. A similar matchup in a comparable broadcast window with Clark in the lineup reportedly attracted about 600,000 more viewers. Same league, similar time slot, similar television exposure. Yet one key difference changed everything. Caitlin Clark wasn't playing, and approximately 600,000 viewers chose not to tune in. To be fair, those figures come from early reporting and media coverage rather than finalized audited ratings, so the exact numbers could change slightly. Even so, the overall trend is difficult to dismiss. A swing of roughly 600,000 viewers isn't a statistical blip. It's the equivalent of an entire mid-sized city's worth of people making a different viewing decision based on whether one player takes the court. At this point, no other player in the WNBA appears to influence television audiences on that level, and the gap isn't particularly close. That's why the question league executives should be asking isn't simply, how do we continue growing? The more pressing question is, what happens whenever Caitlin Clark isn't available to play? And how often could that happen? Tonight's broadcast is providing a real-time answer.
Now. I wonder if ESPN is regretting that decision now. Last week's game that Caitlin Clark didn't play, I believe that was a CBS game that did about 1.56 million, which was down roughly 600,000 from the last CBS game in a comparable window against the Liberty. It was down 600,000. So, though the number...
Now we come to the statistic that really matters, and this is the one everyone should be paying attention to. Reports suggest the last game Caitlin Clark missed attracted around 1.5 million viewers. On its own, that's still a strong television audience. But the real story isn't the total, it's the comparison. A similar matchup in a nearly identical broadcast window, with Clark in the lineup, reportedly drew about 600,000 more viewers. Same league, same network, and virtually the same time slot. The only major difference was that Caitlin Clark wasn't on the court, and roughly 600,000 people decided not to watch. To be fair, these figures are based on early reports and media estimates rather than finalized audited ratings, so the exact totals may change. Even so, the overall trend is impossible to ignore. A drop of around 600,000 viewers isn't a minor fluctuation. It's an audience the size of a major city disappearing because one player wasn't available. No one else in the WNBA currently has that kind of impact on television viewership, and it isn't especially close. That's why the question the league should be asking behind closed doors isn't simply how to keep growing. It's what happens every time Caitlin Clark isn't in uniform, and how often they can afford for that to happen. Tonight's game is serving as a real-time test of that reality.
Watch Caitlin play basketball. I guess it was too much to ask for. Already missing our third game. What you meant to say is Caitlin Clark is out with back issues because Stephanie White and the Fever organization don't have her back. I'm out.
And listen carefully to how the fans themselves are describing it, because they're not hiding how they feel. All I wanted this season was to watch Caitlin Clark play basketball. I'm out. I won't be watching. Those few sentences capture the entire relationship. Many of these viewers didn't become devoted fans of a particular franchise or even the league as a whole. They tuned in because of one player, And when that player isn't on the floor, their interest disappears with her. You can argue that's not how traditional sports fandom works. People often say true fans support the team no matter who's playing. But from a business perspective, whether that loyalty is deep or temporary isn't the important part. The only thing that matters is whether it's real. And when thousands of seats remain empty and television audiences fall by hundreds of thousands, it becomes difficult to argue otherwise. Those numbers suggest the effect is very real. At the same time, there's another question surrounding the team that many fans believe still hasn't been fully answered.
White's post-game outrage doesn't excuse her failure to protect star player on the court. Wish they would tell us more about her back. Is it chronic or due to an injury? Back problems are not minor injuries. Indeed so, Hallie. But the thing is, if they were to be honest with us and upfront about what the severity of the injury is, well, then they're losing potential people buying tickets.
Watch what the organization won't say. Fans are asking a completely reasonable question. Is this back issue chronic, or is it a one-off? How serious is it actually? And the answers stay vague. Now here's the uncomfortable theory, and it's worth naming even though we can't prove it. Vagueness sells tickets. If the team came out and said plainly, she's going to miss significant time, what happens? Every remaining ticket for every remaining home game gets harder to move overnight. Every maybe she plays keeps a little hope alive, and hope moves inventory. I'm not stating that as fact. There's no memo. Nobody has confirmed a strategy like that. And it may simply be that they're guarding private medical information, which is entirely their right to do. But you can understand why fans get suspicious when the people with a direct financial interest in you buying a ticket are also the only people who know how hurt the player really is, and they're choosing to stay quiet. And back problems, by the way, are not usually the kind of thing that clears up in a single night. Fans know that, too. It feeds right back into the mood in these comments.
Status out till CC returns. Caitlyn is out. Think I'll check out an evening movie. Damn. She needs to immediately walk away. I wouldn't want to play in this league either. Why watch then? Give us a reason. Wow, if CC is out, so am I.
Now, watch the mood curdle, because this is where it goes past I miss Clark into something the league should actually worry about. Fans aren't just saying they'll skip tonight. Some are saying they're done until she's back. Some are booking a movie instead. And a few are going further and saying she should walk away from the whole situation entirely. Now, that last one is raw emotion talking, not a realistic outcome. She's under contract. She's the face of the sport. Nobody is walking. But the sentiment underneath it is the dangerous part. When your most valuable audience starts attaching its loyalty to one player and its frustration to the organization around her, you've got a fan base that sees the star and the franchise as two separate things, and they've picked the star side. That is a precarious place for any team to be, because the moment fans decide the institution is the obstacle standing between them and the player they love. Every vague injury update, every promo, every coaching call gets read in the worst possible light. And you can watch that happening in real time. Meanwhile, the ticket market keeps telling the same story.
Folks, look, you got some cheaper tickets on the ends over here. $37 to sit in section 12, $28 to sit in section 12, $11 to sit in 37, $33 to sit in section 13, $35 to sit in section 3. You have affordable tickets.
Look at these prices again, because the specifics tell the story better than any take could. $37, $28, $33 for a nice seat up front. These are not nosebleeds. Some of these are genuinely good sections, priced like a fast casual dinner, and they are still just sitting there. And here's the context that makes it stranger. This is Las Vegas. This is a building that usually moves tickets, a market that generally shows up. The home team even has its own superstar in Ozzie Wilson, who the coverage itself admits is arguably the best player in the entire league. So this isn't some small market dead crowd on a random Tuesday. This is a marquee franchise in an event city, on national TV, and the market has essentially shrugged. When you strip out the one visiting player, even a legitimate championship-level home team and a proven ticket town can't manufacture the demand. That's not a knock on Wilson. She's a real generational star. It's a measurement of just how singular the Clark effect has become, and the resale market makes it even harder to argue with.
You even check Ticketmaster. Tons of tickets available in Ticketmaster. $79, $122, $78. So this is these tickets are more expensive on Ticketmaster. However, when you look at StubHub, $28, $37, $29, $30.
See, here's the tell that really seals it. On the primary site, tickets are running $70, $120, $78. But flip over to the resale market, and the same building is going for $28, $35, $37. For seats, the listings themselves call amazing. When resale prices crater below face value, that is the single clearest distress signal in the entire ticketing world. It means people who already bought in, season ticket holders, speculators, folks who grabbed inventory expecting to flip it for a profit, are now trying to dump those seats for whatever they can get. And even at a loss, there are no takers. That's not soft demand. That's a market actively trying to get out. And think about who gets burned there. The small-time reseller who saw the Clark boom assumed every ticket in this league was now gold bought a block for this game, and is now eating the loss because the one name that made those tickets valuable isn't on the floor. The boom created a little bubble of people betting on Clark being available every night. Tonight, a piece of that bubble is quietly popping in real time. So, what should you actually be watching for tonight?
Not selling. So I'm interested. I'm very interested to see what these ratings are going to look like. I'm interested if we see any videos, any pictures of if the building's full, if the building's not full. Do a lot of these tickets sell out later? Again, no Caitlin Clark is enough of a reason not to watch. But you don't even have.
There are two numbers that'll tell the real story, and they both land after the fact. First, the crowd. Watch whether that building actually fills in or whether the cameras keep finding empty pockets in those cheap sections all night. And watch whether a sudden wave of tickets sells late last minute, because that would tell you people held out just to see if she'd get magically cleared. Second, and this is the big one, the overnight rating coming into tonight. A fair guess is somewhere under 1.5 million. And the question is, how far under? Does it settle in the low millions? Or does it slide toward that 1.2, 1.1 range that would genuinely rattle the network that gave up baseball for this? Because here's what a single soft night does not prove on its own. Nothing. Stars get hurt. One game is one game. But this isn't happening in isolation. It's the ticket collapse and the resale collapse and the ratings drop and the fan exodus all pointing the same direction on the same night. Which leads straight to the thing this whole league would rather you didn't say out loud. So, here's the real takeaway. The one sitting underneath all the empty seats and the cut rate tickets. The coverage lands on it almost by accident. No Clark. The best player on the floor tonight is Kennedy Carter. And there's basically no storyline. Sit with that phrase for a second. No storyline. A game between two real franchises. One of them featuring an MVP caliber talent in A'ja Wilson. And the honest read is that without one specific guard, there's no reason for a casual fan to tune in. That's the whole thing in a sentence. This was never really a story about one back injury or one slow ticket night. It's a story about a league that got the biggest gift in its history. A genuine crossover superstar who dragged millions of brand new eyeballs to the sport and then leaned so much of its momentum on her availability that a single night off exposes how thin the floor underneath actually is. That's not a reason to celebrate, and it's a reason to dunk on the league. If anything, it's a warning. The smart play here is to use the Clark spotlight to build other stars people will stay for when she rests, because injuries and rest nights aren't optional. They're guaranteed. The open question is whether they're actually doing that or just cashing the checks while the sun shines. So, I'll put it to you. Is tonight a one-off blip that means nothing, or is it the first real crack showing in the Caitlin Clark economy? Tell me where you land in the comments. If this broke it down for you, like the video and subscribe.